Om Shanti, and welcome to today's BK Chit Chat. Welcome to those of you live here and those of you tuning in later on through YouTube. Welcome to you as well. If you don't know me, my name is Shaban and I am a student of the London Centre in the UK. And this is a chit chat for BK students who study the Murli regularly. And you'll hear different themes and different topics taken up. The aim is to allow students to have that chit chat and stimulate each other's thoughts and ideas. So here we welcome questions and we don't feel anything is disrespectful, but we welcome anyone wishing to clarify things, and also people can share their perspectives on their own efforts as well, because Baba's Murli is all about developing ourselves, transforming ourselves, developing our spiritual mindset and power. And so therefore all of these things are part of these videos. So welcome to those of you who are here live. Good to see you. We've had 2 or 3 weeks off. And so lots of catching up to do. I think it was Mama's Day 1 week. And then last week, I can't remember when, last week we were somewhere, I think. And then we're into Didi's month this month. So the plan is that Ranjan Ben will come a little later on and we'll read the Murli that Dada spoke after Didi's funeral. So that's the aim, that's the thinking, the plan behind today. But in terms of whatever topics you'd like to cover before then, can I hand over to one of you to start us off?
Morning, everyone. I was listening to a class that, well, not a class, but a Murli that Sister Jayanti did in Berlin, which was yesterday. You know, and at the end of the class, you know, she normally would have the little chit chat, and she was saying, you know, Baba had said, I think it was she was in 2017, it was, or 2015, when Baba has said that we have now reached the end. And she was saying at the time they didn't understand because it was on October Aviak Murli, and she said she wasn't there. And then she waited in December. She went in December thinking, it was the beginning of December. And at the end of December, when she went, she was thinking that Baba would say something, follow up on it. And Baba said nothing. But she said it's later that they understood it really was the end of the knowledge that Baba was coming to give, because he has given everything. And what drew my attention was that it's not that I didn't know, but bring it back to the forefront is that Baba has told us everything, and there's no more knowledge to know. There's few things maybe at the end he may reveal to us. He has said that before, but how critical it is now. And we see where the world is heading. Nothing is going to get better. That is an indication more and more of where we are in this cycle, in this drama. And what is really important for each one of us is taking this knowledge that Baba has given to us and really utilizing it for where we see in time is concerned. I know we always say, don't be time conscious, but I feel that an awareness of time is also important, to know that nothing is getting better. Everything the world is becoming worse. Even with Sister Mohini, she also is also indicating in such way the world is really reaching the full stage of hell. So that really, that brought me back again. You hear knowledge, you hear these seniors with their churning, and it really helps to center you again when you feel you're straying into so much things within the world, that where the focus has to be, what it is we need to do. And Baba said, we know it's easy, Raj Yoga, but it's easy because when we become centered and stop focusing on everything around, just be aware what we need to do, but focus on really what is important, God and soul. And those two things, I do know that when we focus on Baba, we focus on the self, everything else comes into play, that becomes easy. It removes, Baba, I was saying today, as well as obstacles. You know, your obstacles will go once it is you have this this awareness. So drama, karmas, everything, yes, is the play of the drama, but it is focusing on recentering at this time, in using Baba's knowledge for what it is we have to do, you know, and I do feel it really important now. Tuning on everything is important, but just focus on the self, and becoming what Baba wants us to become, which is soul, this full awareness of soul consciousness, becoming incorporeal. And everything else I do feel will fall into place. Shanti. Just felt I needed to share that because it did impact me yesterday.
Thanks for getting us going today. So, yes, it's Brahmins have this very complex relationship with time. And Baba was commenting this morning about how we've got this, it's like a trend that he was observing in the family of souls coming and then souls going. And I think it genuinely surprised Brahma Baba, because once you've got Shiv Baba, why would you go anywhere? But you see, this thing of time on one side is very helpful in terms of motivating us to think that this is the end. So Baba has had this narrative since day one, that this is the end. And what we find is there are a number of Brahmins who that works for in terms of motivating, because there are two main things that motivate human beings. One is hope and the other is fear. And what Baba was commenting was how many Maharathis even will come and go. And he was talking about souls that he was putting in the 8 jewels, number 3, number 4, in the 8 jewels, and they're not with Baba anymore. And Didi Janki used to explain that the largest proportion of Brahmins to leave was in 1951. So there were approximately 350 daddies and daddies who were moving from Karachi to Mount Abu. And she said that 50% of them left knowledge at that time. And you see, this is the downside of this narrative around the end and time. That I can understand why Baba and the seniors do emphasize everything ending. And I know, Ambika Ben, you've been with Baba a long time. You can imagine for me as a child, how many times have I heard that it was the end? So there's pluses and minuses, because what you see is that those souls leaving there was a whole batch as well in 1976. In this morning's Murli, Baba's talking about this concept of the century of confluence age. So at that time, because Brahma Baba was very sure that things were going to end very quickly, and when he saw the Second World War, there was the nuclear bomb released on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. And then there was basically some level of civil war at the time of partition of India and Pakistan. So everything that he had seen in his visions of civil war in India, nuclear bombs, World War, that was all coming together. So they didn't leave Karachi at the time of partition, they stayed. because he was, I think, very sure that that was the end. And then everyone is thinking it's the end, then it's not the end, and half leave. And similar sort of thing in 1976. So some of the Morlings in 1969 and 1970, Weber frames it as, well, these are the last few years. You know, Brahma's just gone in a little bit in advance. And all those Morley's are preparations for the final moments. If you read through Morley's, particularly from 72 to 76, Weber actually uses this concept. And then a large number of Brahmins like after 76. And then, so I think there's a complex relationship with this concept of the end of time. I can't tell you the number of times I've heard it's the last 5 years. And I just feel a more sustainable motivation is love rather than fear. So why I'm mentioning this is I'm cautious to promote amongst brothers and sisters fear as a motivation. Because my view would be that that's not a good basis for wanting to make your spiritual efforts. And I feel it's got to be ultimately love for Baba, love for ourselves, and love for humanity, love for the world, generally. And if I ask myself the question that if today Baba said, okay, actually there's no destruction and there's no golden age, would I stop doing what I do? And I think the answer's got to be no, I would carry on. Because for me, Amrit Veda is so beneficial. Studying the Murli is so beneficial. Remembering Baba is so beneficial. And the values and the virtues that Baba teaches me continue to improve me daily. So I feel so many benefits that it's not that long-term reward that motivates me, but it's the immediate fruit that I see. And Baba spoke about that yesterday in the blessing as well. To have all relationships with Baba and you get a certain fruit through that, which you can't get in any other. And so I am cautious. I agree with you that that is a big feature of many classes. I agree with you, it's a narrative within the Murli. You're definitely not wrong with that. And I also can see the benefits of that. But I do worry about the long-term sustainability, if that's the foundation for Brahmins doing what they're doing. Even if they stay as Brahmins, I've seen many that there isn't that joy, that sparkle. And it's like, I can feel that there's like a fear-based, so there's like a fear-based faith in many ways. And we don't want that. We want a loving, understanding base for the things that we have in Baba and the reason why we are. And I think ultimately it has to be benefiting ourselves that we're doing this because we love it and we feel that benefit. So I would say that what we want is, so hence, I don't use the narrative of the end at all. Because for me, there's only chapters in this drama. There's never an end. And what we're calling an end is only ever a beginning for something else. If we think about the phases of the Yajna so far, the brothers and sisters who came in Karachi, it never occurred to them that they would leave Karachi. Didi Gulzar used to say she came to Baba when she was 12 years old. And they were told that they're going to be living with Mama and Baba. And then Shirbab, with destruction is going to happen, and Shirbab was going to take them home, and they're going to go to the Godhead. And that was it. And it had never occurred to me that she would leave Mama and Baba. So it was quite traumatic for all of them when in the 1950s, Baba sent them all across India to start centers. They had never thought that they would be living separately from Mama and Baba, going and doing new things. But it was another phase. It was the end of one phase. But that became the beginning of another. They moved to Mount Abu, and Sister Gently was sharing that it was actually Didi's month today. We're going to talk a little bit about Didi. And when Shiv Baba had said that they should move to India, and Brahma Baba had sent Didi Manmohini and Dada Vishwa Kishore to find the location of where to go. So Shiv Baba didn't say where to go. And Brahma Baba had an open mind. And most of the daddies and Dada's relatives, they had moved to Mumbai after partition. At the time of the British Empire, even though the region of Sindh is all the way up there in modern-day Pakistan in the north, that area was actually under the governor of Bombay. So it was a complex administrative system. So therefore, it was quite natural to then move. And Brahma Baba himself had a shop and an apartment in Mumbai. So he knew that place very well. And so the relatives, many of them might have already had properties down there. And so they moved there after partition. So Didi went to meet her father initially. And her father was the follower of a guru. His name has escaped my mind at the moment, but he was a famous guru at that time. He was blind. And he was considered a very holy man and genuine holy man and guru. So her father had suggested that she seeks advice from him. And Didi went to meet this guru and explained what Baba was wanting to achieve. And he said, well, if Baba's looking for a peaceful place, we can recommend someone. And again, I didn't know this until just a couple of years ago, but Sister James was saying that Baba had given me one criteria, which was that this is a place, should be a place where Baba and the children can live together. Because all the time in Karachi, Mama was supervising the bungalows where the daddies and dadas were living on one side of the city. And Baba had always liked to live by the sea. Benjamin and I had just returned from the seaside actually yesterday. We were there for the last week. I had a work trip there in the south coast of England. And Baba had always positioned himself in places like Karachi, Mumbai, Calcutta, and the coastline. So he had always liked that. And he also used to spend time in the mountains. So he was someone who was very much drawn by nature for meditative, spiritual reflection. So in Karachi as well, his bungalow was on the seaside, in a place there called Clifton. And when Lady Janki had visited Karachi, she'd gone to all these places about 10 years ago or so. So Baba had given this criteria that when they find somewhere in India, it wouldn't be separate places. It would be one place where everyone would go. So this guru had suggested Mount Abu. And so they wrote back to Baba, and Baba said, yes, go and take a look. And I think Baba had a contact with the king of Sirohi, which is the district where Mount Abu is. And it was actually his secretary who mentioned that the king has a bungalow there that he's not using. It's run down. So Didi and Devi Vishwakishore went to take a look, and they went there, and it was very, very like a ruin, really, and very decrepit. And they wrote to Baba that we've come to take a look at this place. It was called Bridge Koti, and slightly further up from where Pandit Baba is now. And Didi wrote to Baba to say, yes, it could be suitable because to accommodate, you can imagine, to accommodate 300 people, there's not, to find a building where everyone can live together for 300 people, that is a challenge. And she said it could be possible, but the biggest problem, Baba, is that there are lots of snakes. So Baba wrote back in the telegram that Baba has come to remove the snakes from the whole world. What's the problem if we've got to remove a few snakes from one building? And so Baba gave a go-ahead. And that's when they moved to Bridge Koti. And there's a video on YouTube I saw a few months ago because it's now a hotel. They had taken the BKs around and they've done a little film of where Mama's room was and so on in that place. And then, so what happened was we had a new beginning of Madhaba. So it wasn't it. The end of that time in Karachi and the Bhatti came to an end. Baba calls that the Bhatti, the furnace, the kiln, where the daddies were baked. And okay, half of them left, but the ones that stayed, what great daddies they became. What great daddies they became. And Baba, I think it was last week or the week before, the London Centre had put up a video of Murli on a Saturday evening from 97. And I was reminded about this. I remembered the point, but I hadn't remembered it was this Murli from 97. I think it was March 97. And what Shiv Baba was commenting was how the Brahmins have to expand their service of the mind. And he was saying that if you look at the beginning of the yajna, Baba didn't have leaflets and programs, but Baba did the service of the mind. And look how many souls came. I mean, they had a lot of people coming at that time to listen to Baba's moment. And he was commenting that look at the ones that became BKs. The Daddy Prakashmani, Mama, Devi Janki, all of them. So he was saying that if you can expand your yoga power, then the souls that will be touched through those vibrations, they will actually be of a certain level. They'll be like ready-made. So those souls then became the foundation. And there's other Murlis where I recall that Baba was saying that, I think this would have been in the 1990s, maybe 2000s. And Baba was saying that he was noticing that there were more quantity of BKs coming now, but he felt there were less Maharati souls emerging. Because he was remembering that time of the early 1950s. And he was saying that the daddies and dadas had just emerged from the bedroom. So 13 years or 10 years focusing on their yoga mainly. And he was saying that those daddies then went to cross India. And there was something about it. It was like this accumulated yoga. So again, they didn't know what they were doing. Like you listen to the daddy, they never started a center before. No one knew what a center was. They didn't have really any pictures, any books. They didn't have any resources. They didn't know what they were doing. They didn't even know the places they were going to. Literally, we hear people like David Gulzar, and Baba just told them, right, today, here's your train ticket. You two go there and start a center. And it was literally like this. They had no idea what they were doing. But there was something about them. there was a spark. There was this spiritual magnetism. And Baba was commenting that look who emerged in Dada Jagdish, Dada Bridgemohan's father. You look at the type of soil that it became a new beginning. And Baba calls them the original jewels of service. You look at the Didis we've got now, they all emerge from the centers that Adi's created. And look, they're now Sister Mahini, Sister Jayanti, they're all the daddies there, aren't they? They're all the foundation there. So a lot of them, like Sister Jayanti, she didn't really come through knowledge. She came through seeing Devi Jayanti and meeting Brahmagada. But they had that experience. Dada Jagdish, he initially, he came, the very first center there in Delhi was in a place called Kamla Nagar, and it was Didi Manmohini Center. So Baba had sent her to start the whole center. But they all went, like all the Devis went there, Mama went there, everyone went there. And there was this daddy called Kunj Daddy, and she was very sweet. So she was the person allocated to give the course to Dada Jagdish. But he was a professor, he was an intellectual. So he had lots of questions, and she didn't have these answers. And Baba says this in the morning, that if you don't have the answers, you should just be honest and say that I'll pass you on to a senior sister. So then Didi asked Devi Janki to give him the course, because even from those days, Devi Janki was distinguishing herself in her chanting power. And so Devi Janki gave Dada Jagdish the course. And he completed the course and immediately said he wanted to go to Motherbank to meet Baba. And they'd only just moved there to this bridge county, and it was not in a great state though. But he still wanted to go, and they wrote to Baba, and Baba sent the telegram back saying the child can come. And Dada Jagdish just describes just the feeling of meeting his parents, his mother and father, and he just burst into tears. And it wasn't intellect, he wasn't sure based on the knowledge, but it was an experience. And just meeting Baba, the purity of the daddies, the spirituality of the daddy, this is what convinced him. So it opened a new chapter. And then Baba talks a lot about, in the Sakar Murlis that we hear Monday to Saturday, he mentions about how people from the foreign lands will come and listen to your knowledge. Your mission will also go abroad, and we will start things out there. And Devi Prakashmani had gone on a tour of East Asia in 1954. Japan and Korea and Indonesia, Singapore, all those places, because the daddy's relatives had businesses all around those areas. So she had gone and stayed in those places with Daddy Reckonmani and Dada Anand Fisher. Initially, they'd gone for a conference to Japan, and then they went in. But nothing had really started, or Hong Kong as well. Sort of like it was just their relatives and they were giving knowledge, but nothing really outside of that. And then Baba became an angel, as you all know. Your mama went in 65, and knew that was an end. And I've shared with you this story that Jandiban shares. She was a teenager. She hadn't really come properly to knowledge at that time, but her mother was a BK since the 1950s. So her mother was visiting Motherban from London, and she had gone with them. And this would have been 1966. And it was the early days when Baba was encouraging the seniors of that time to begin meeting for service. And they used to call it seminars. But Baba had said at that time, Didi, Devi Prakashmani, Dada Jagdish, people like that, they were in Nagadan. And Brahma Baba had said that they should meet and have seminars to plan service. And then Baba would join them at the end of that meeting. And he saw Sister Jayanti in the courtyard and said to her, come. And he took her into the meeting at the end. And she recalls Didi saying to Baba that they had come to the conclusion that when Mama was there, service was expanding much better. And having a figurehead, like Mama was the head of the Brahma Kumaris, and having that sort of figurehead makes a lot of difference. Like when you're inviting a senior to come, more people who don't usually come to the center, they come. So Didi was saying that Baba should, they came to the view that Baba should appoint Mama number 2. And Baba had a few moments of silence. And then Baba said, there's only one Mama. There can't be another one. And Sister Jayanti shares that, that it made me sort of it made her realize as well that everyone's got their own role. You can't duplicate someone else. But what had happened was after Mama, Didi was always the senior sister since the beginning. Yeah, she was the very first BK to become a BK. And she was the mother. This is why Baba was saying the other day about the mothers. She was a mother. She became the first BK to surrender. She was always there. But after Mama went, she really became like the elder sister is like a mother figure when the mother goes. So she really became like a mother for everyone as well. So it was an end and a beginning. And then we saw, and Devi Chandramani, she became like one of Mama's roles was also to travel. So Didi was older anyway. So Mama was looking after and supervising everything. Didi took over those duties, supporting Baba and Mother by supervising all the centers. But Mama used to also travel across India. And it was Devi Chandramani who took over more of those roles. So she became the daddy of Punjab in the north and the daddy of Madras, Bangalore, in the south. So she traveled right across India. So a new beginning. And then, as we all know, on 18th January 69, Brahma left. So that was a big surprise. That was an end. But it was a beginning. And Devi Guzar used to share afterwards how it was a surprise that he handed over to Devi Prakash. She was 47 at the time. If you think I'm 45, so she was only 2 years older than me. And he's handed over the whole. Didi Manmohini was the one they all expected that he would hand over to, because she was there from the beginning as the senior, and she would have been about 65 at that time, something like that. So you had like Devi Brijendra would have been about 65, 70. Other daddies that were older. Mama's mother, right, as well. She was still around, I think, at that time. She was one of the first BKs since 1936 and so on. But then Devi Guzar used to reflect that, of course, Didi left in 1983, and we got her 50th anniversary on the 28th of July. So this is why today we'll be reading the Murli after Didi's funeral. Devi Guzar was saying that, of course, Baba was thinking long term, that it was going to be very important to have the same figure for nearly 40 years. So Devi Prakash was with us till 2007. Didi was very important in those early years of the transition. But then it was the time of the daddies, wasn't it? And it was their time of leadership. So it was an end, but it was a beginning. And so, yes, on one side, it looks like Bubba's not speaking, coming and speaking the Murli. So I know what Sister Janti is saying. But then since then, we've continued to have lots of messages every week from Baba. And Baba has said to us in the Murlis that just like he used to sustain us through messages in Karachi, he'll sustain us again though, through visions, through messages. And then we've seen also the Brahmin family continue to mature and develop. So the Brahmins are also experimenting and churning. And whatever Baba is saying, Brahmins are adding insights of that. So I think we could say that the ocean of knowledge is now continuing to increase, but it exists in Baba's morals, it exists in the daddy's classes, it exists in other senior brothers and sisters' classes, but also in the wider Brahmin family's experiences and classes. So I think the way Baba's now seeing the ocean of knowledge is it's almost like he is empowered for it to be outside of him as well. And that the ocean of knowledge is recorded as well for future generations. It exists within the wider Brahmin family. At the time of the daddies, Baba used to say that there's only Baba and Mama as the senior. Now, you've got so much experience. And Sister Janvi always says that there won't be a single problem that a Brahmin has that another Brahmin hasn't faced. There's someone who's gone through what you're going through. And there's someone coming from your background who's gone through your background. Like in Baba's days, there were not so many couples. It was quite unusual for people to be having powerful careers and being a Brahmin. There was no one living in foreign countries following everything that we did. I mean, now you tick off, there's a Brahmin for everything. So I think the ocean of knowledge, this is why I can understand that I don't see this as an end. I see that there's always some newness coming, and I don't see that it's the end of the knowledge at all. I feel the knowledge is continuing to grow and expand and becoming deeper for all of us. And even though we are rehearing knowledge, they feel brand new every time we're hearing them. And we're developing. So it was a long response. Do you want to come back and look at that?
I agree with you with everything. And I do agree that it's not to look at anything as an end. It's different. I think there's the chicken in the background, and there's some hunted dogs that going
No
at
problem.
it. I need to go
No problem. It's
inside.
not just slow. Don't. Yeah, don't worry, sister. Your Zoom is cancelling out the sound. We're not doing this time.
Okay, you're hearing me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I do agree 100%. Is that everything ends, there's a beginning. And really it is the love that we have for Baba, for the Yagya, for the whole drama, is what is the biggest sustenance. And also, yes, the knowledge, as you're saying, Baba would have said everything, but really now it is going on a deeper level of the churning that happens with the seniors within the cell. And there's expansion there where the knowledge is concerned. That brings it to a deeper level for all of us. So I do agree, because I think when Sister Jayanti said it, I think it was basically ready to maybe as a reminder or saying that everything is changing. While there's an end, yes, of Baba actually coming the way he did, because Baba himself had indicated things will change. The method of meeting will change, and that we have to develop. So what I see is that, yes, the knowledge is there, we have it. It comes now all the time in the renewal. It's a renew message every time we get it in the Murlis. But it's now to develop the such of the yoga that I feel maybe wasn't there as much in the beginning. So that phase is what we into now, that I think Baba is more concentrating on, that the children develop this deep yoga of self and God. And it's just where we are in the drama at this point. So yes, the reminder, these classes acts a lot for me as a reminder, and yes, motivation to do better. But I do think knowledge has not finished. That will not finish. Papa said that will be with us till the end. So basically, yes, knowing that all the challenges will always come from time to time. And it is the knowledge that will help us with the yoga power. So it's not to discount that the knowledge has ended, not like that, but it's again an awareness and a recognition. There's changes that's happening. There's changes that will happen until the end, because we don't know. Baba himself has indicated from time to time that there are things that still will be revealed up till the end. So that's it. And I know, like, even when Daddy Prakash, when he left, there was, well, maybe a fear in some souls that what is going to happen. I think there was a fear on a point where Daddy Janki was going to, and how she was going to manage it. But as we saw, everything continued, you know, and the love was extended from Daddy Janki to the Yagya. Same way in which Daddy Prakash Muni would have given that love, because I think that was what, especially for the Madhuban Niwasis, that love, at the end of the day, it was the love that sustained them. The knowledge, yes, but it was the love that they got from Daddy Prakash Muni. And we got it at the end also from Daddy Janki. But Daddy Janki was always the law, and Daddy Prakash Muni was the love. So yes, the drama changes, things end, but and I do see, and I agree 100% with you. There's always a beginning. It's always a beginning.
Thanks, sister. Yes, I think those are good examples and good points. And I think just overall, my main message is that for me, I don't feel anything can be negative. I'm totally convinced. So there's no margin in my mind for things to go wrong. There can't be anything that can go wrong for the Burmans. There can only be benefit. And I'm absolutely optimistic about everything. My confidence age is not based on a fear of distraction. I'm convinced that we're all going to get to our destination. And I look at Shiv Baba with more and more wonder and awe each day, because what did he know? He knows so many things we don't know. And he has always had a long-term picture. And he only reveals things on a need-to-know basis. And he's doing a much bigger task that we don't know about. But the first thing he did was create a yajna. He did that on day one. Like he just said that. So who knew? I mean, not even Brahma Baba would have known at that time that everyone would be all these decades later. But he knew that there should be a yajna that can capture all the attainments and provide all the sustenance down here. And of course, Shiv Baba, Brahma Baba, they can sustain us from up there. And so how Baba has created the system where you might remember we had that message from Sister Shashi back in March, where Baba was saying that children should recognize the time that currently blessings are falling from the sky on top of you. So it's understanding that Baba is doing more from up above, and there is a greater quantity and possibly, just variety, I think, of sustenance now. So each phase of the yajna also has its own speciality. So what we got is Shiv Baba really thinking long term, and that's why he knew that the yajna is important. He always says to us, Brahmins, you must sustain the yajna. You must look after the yajna. Because if this yajna is continuing, then the Brahmins are always being sustained, always gaining opportunities. Where I think the time thing comes in is we know we have to accumulate over a long period of time. So that's for me where it is, that I have to make the most of today. I got an opportunity to accumulate. Let me not waste. So let me make the most. How can I accumulate in thoughts, words, actions, body, speciality? Well, that's where we've got to maximize opportunities, because certain opportunities will only come today. And so I must use today's opportunities today. And that's for me the greater focus of where something can end. You can have an end of an opportunity. So, Shanti Maria Ben, thanks for your question, Ben.
Can I just ask a question? Who are the Madhuban Niwasis?
That just means the people living in Madhuban, in the headquarters in Mount Abu. The word Nivasi means resident.
Thank you.
And so, Maria Ben, thanks for the question in the chat. Do you want to come in and say more?
Thank you.
Okay. So Maria Ben's asking in the chat about this comment of, I had it this morning in the Murli did it about a century confluence age. And then sometimes we'll hear different figures, 50, 60 years and this. But I think this is my overall point, that I am very, very cautious about this, because the more I look at it, do we really know Shiv Baba and how he's looking at everything? Or are we putting our human mentalities onto Shiv Baba, using our spectacles to try and interpret what Shiv Baba is saying? So let's take this example of the word century that was in today's learning. Now, I look at that and we know what we mean by a century. Is that the same definition as Shiv Baba's definition? Because he's always looking at things in a very unlimited way, and he often redefines things. Let's like this thing about a year. Now, there are different calendars in the world already. Right? You can go around the world and one calendar will tell you it's this year. Another calendar will tell you it's this year. And there are already multiple calendars in the world. Now, when Shiv Baba says a year, is a year that we know, so it's 364 and a quarter days. Now, that means we take it up from a scientific perspective, that for the Earth to circle around the sun takes 364 and a quarter days at the end of the island. And my question is, does it take 364 and a quarter days in the golden? And none of you will be able to answer this question because we don't know. And this is what makes me cautious, because I can presume to know what Shiv Baba said, but do I? So what if he means 100 golden age years? And that's a different amount of days. I don't know. I don't know how long a year is in the golden. I have been educated in the iron, at the end of the iron. So, and I'm, for example, even talking with all of you, you are all from different countries. You will also feel, talking to me, that my education has been here in England, like I am a product of my education system, aren't I? And then, of course, I've had my BK education also in England. So I'm going to be a certain product of a certain place and a certain education. Now, 100 years ago, the education would have shaped me differently, right? And in another 50 years, it would shape differently again. So I just feel there's an element where I feel I should be humble enough to say, actually, I don't know everything Shibaya means. And I don't want to presume. So I gave the example earlier about 1976. So I was still in my previous body at that time. I was born in 1978. But I've met many BKs in the UK is an old centre. I know some of you are also from old BK centres, but the UK was one of the first centres outside of India. And there are still Brahmins who came to Baba in 1971, 72, 73, something like that. They're still here in the centres. So I've heard from them that I remember one brother. He came to Baba in 1974, and he was told on the first day of doing the course, destruction is going to happen in 1976. That was the first day. But you've got 2 more years. Sister Gently shows as well that when she became a BK, she was told that everything was going to end in 1976. And she was told she's got to become karmatik by then. She was 18 years old. And she thought, yeah, that should be fine. I should be able to do it. And they were all told this, all the BKs at that time were absolutely certain that it was all going to end because Brahmagupta had left as well. That was a sign. Obviously, he's going to go and become Sri Krishna. That's why he's gone in 1969. So he's going to be reborn as Sri Krishna in 1976. That's why he's gone. So they all had this conviction. I don't know if his brother was joking, certainly others were joking. He was saying that in 1975, his light bulb went out, but he thought he won't buy a new light bulb because destruction was going to happen. He just left the old light bulb. Then what's the point in even repairing your house? So it came in the Murli day before yesterday, where Baba said that children asked Baba that if destruction is going to happen, why are you building new buildings? And so obviously Shiv Baba knew better, but really he says in these models that it's a century, that India Viet model is only a few years left, and he uses this time of 1976. It's there in the models as well. At the same time, he's building buildings, and he's expanding centers, and he's doing. And so some Brahmins would ask Brahmana, it's contradiction. Same thing happened with the building of Shantiban. I remember that Dada coming because, again, so it didn't happen 76. I was always told as a child, 2000. That's it. Everything. It's the end. Some of you were Brahmins then, you will recall that as well. And then Baba's building Gyan Sarovar in 1995. And then something even bigger in 1997. So I remember that Dada directly answering this question in the morning. because some Brahmins, they asked actually quite a wise question. So it wasn't a doubtful question, but their question to Baba was that Devi Prakashmani had told everyone in the Brahmin family that everyone has to contribute. If you remember, we've been listening to the Murlis around the opening of Gyan Sarovar recently on the Sundays. And Baba had said the speciality of Gyan Sarovar was that from children to old people, everyone contributed, everyone in the Brahmin family. So what would happen is that people of all ages, all backgrounds, they will be served from Gyan Sarovar. So he was explaining the law of energy, that because Brahmins, well, all types of Brahmins have contributed, like a magnet, for many types of people to come and serve. So there's a purpose behind Baba saying this. So I remember Devi Prakashmani saying that every Brahmin has to put at least 1 rupee a month towards Shantivan. And of course, it's everyone's capacity, but she said, even if you're very poor, you can afford a rupee a month. You must put that aside because every Brahmin's important. And of course, others could afford more, so they're going to give more. So they had asked the question, well, if destruction is going to happen in 2000, and by that time, Shantivan hasn't been fully built, would our fortune be created? Because if it's just sitting there, but it hasn't been used, and if Baba's building things in 97, 98, there's only 2 more years, not many people would be served then, would they? And so would you create your fortune? So Baba said in that Murli that the moment you give, it gets accumulated in Shabbat Bank. So you don't need to worry about how it's used. It's accumulated with Shabbat. So he is Dharamraj, the Supreme Accountant. You don't need to. He's going to create your future. But of course, Shabbat knew we'll still be here in 2022. Well, that Shantivan is going to be used. And look how much it's expanded. And there's so many different other complexes on one. So I ask myself the question, so like, I am often criticized by colleagues or people who know me who are not BKs or they're somehow connected with BKs that, like, I remember one person at Oxford University saying to me that you're a scholar from Oxford University and you still believe in God. Are you not more intelligent than this? And then people who know a little bit about BK knowledge, Baba says in the Murli 5,000 years. And like there's a pyramid in Egypt that's 6,000 years old. So again, people like me, they will look at us and say, can you really be so unintelligent to believe all these things? But for me, it's not about intelligence. I got faith in Shabbat first. Then secondly, because of that faith, it then makes me humble. And I feel I don't know everything. Just because I got a degree or two, it doesn't make me the oracle of all the knowledge. I am a student. I'm always a student. Whether it's worldly knowledge or whether it's BK knowledge, Baba's knowledge. I never introduced myself even as a teacher. Certainly in Baba's knowledge, never. I'm always a student. I never feel I'm a teacher. So if Baba is saying 5,000 years, 100 years, I feel maybe his definition of a year is different. And maybe there's something else that I don't know about. And he's coming from that because I've accepted him as the ocean of knowledge. I've accepted him as the supreme teacher. I've accepted him as the Sadguru. So I feel he's testing my faith. And so he's included a few bits and pieces that could create doubt. And if my faith was based that only if you meet my understanding, if you match my understanding, then I got faith in you, then obviously there are many things that don't make sense. But that's not the basis. So for me, there's something deeper inside of me that has got recognized Shabbat and has got faith and better. Then the things I hear in the morning, I'm listening to them based upon that deep effort. And I'm saying, well, Baba, you know more than me. So I'm going to use you as my supreme question. Then the things I know from my education, which I'm only a limited person, and the people who teach me, they also are limited people. But there are many things that can be useful for complementing what Baba's teaching. But there will obviously be things which will then contradict what Baba is saying. So, for example, if I speak at places or give courses, people who are quite intellectual, one of the first things they will ask me is, are you presenting this knowledge as a science? Now, I've heard Brahmins, in fact, I've heard a lot of Brahmins say yes to the question. And I always cringe at this. So I always answer no. And this is not a science, this is a philosophy. Now that then immediately calms them down, because the thing about a science is you've got to prove it. And that scientific methods means something you can observe through your eyes. It's based basically on the eyes. And how do we prove Shabbat? How do you prove the soul? How do you prove these things? I feel these things are not there to be proven, personally. Now, there are many Brahmins who spend their lives trying to prove these things. I personally feel I don't need it proven. I feel a lot of things are just your personal experience. And if you feel the benefit, you're going to do it. Because I actually teach courses on evidence in my work. And one of the things we teach our students, most evidence is not really that conclusive anyway. And so even when you think you've proven it, someone else can sort of prove another way. And so it's never that conclusive anyway, a lot of it. So you might as well just use something else to be certain about. And I think it is also valid to go on the basis of experience. So in this way, I don't get caught up with time, as you can tell from my whole narrative today. So I am maybe one of the few Brahmins. I know my experience is Brahmin's favorite topic is to talk about when will distraction happen and what will this happen. And it's the topic that bores me the most, because I really am not interested. Because for me, it's not why I'm here. I'm here to get to know Shiv Baba, get to know the Murli, and to change myself and improve myself and accumulate. So I'm focusing on that. And if tomorrow Baba says, well, actually, the cycle is 8,000 years, and it's going to be another 400 years of confluence age, it's no difference. It doesn't make any difference, because that wasn't the basis of me doing this. So the basis of me doing this is I like Shiv Baba, and I feel the Murli is my best spiritual guide. So I'm going to stick with it. And then everything else, I'm going to use my judgment. Do that. But I'm not caught up in the number of years. So I've heard Brahmins have theories about how long Brahmadatta, it's all to do with when he was born to when he will die. It's 1936 to 2036. Between you and me, brothers and sisters, it wouldn't surprise me that the next big test of the Brahmin family is 1st January 2037. And just like Daddy Janki's generation, half the daddies left in 1950, maybe half the Brahmins will leave in 2037. If they are so convinced that I'm only here if it happens in 2037. But this is why I say to all of you, what's the foundation? And it wouldn't make any difference to me. Absolutely not interested. So this is why these things Brahmins are interested in. They want to churn this date. Krishna will be born. This date. This one will be born. I've heard every theory. I've been in knowledge a long time. I assure you, I've heard every. And I'm not convinced by anything other than what I hear at the Murli. So I feel that maybe the concept of time, the concept of years, I've heard Murli after Murli that it says liberation of life is a second. So maybe that is definition of a second is it? So I am not being presumptuous on anything. My presumption is I don't know. Let's see what happens. And Baba and Drama will show me when I need to know. So I appreciate that's different to what many Brahmins will tell you, but obviously I just got to be honest and offer you my perspective. That's just a personal perspective on this and what works for me. So I am not at all time conscious.
Brother Shalan, can I come in? I have faith in Baba, and I have faith in Baba because I see it in the magic and in the miracles. So I don't have to prove anything because I feel it and I have faith. So now I'm going to ask a question, which is going to, but it's bothering me. So which seems like it's going against what I just said. But the other day I was listening to a speaker who is a songwriter. I forget his name, but he mentioned the year the Christianity started 23 years ago. So I'm telling myself, if Christianity is supposed to be 2,500 years, how does that relate to the end of the world and to the end of Christianity? And it is a question that's puzzling me in my mind. So I'm bringing it up for discussion because I want to get it out of my head.
Yes. So I think just day by day, sister, we just got to carry on hearing the moments and our clarity continues to develop. I don't think it is just getting an answer in a day. I think what Baba's putting us through is a gradual education process and our clarity grows. I've been hearing these movies for 14 years and I tell you, day by day, my clarity is just continuing to develop and grow. So I don't think Baba says that Christianity is 2,500 years, but he talks about the Patha Bhakti, the entire process of religion. So he sometimes mentions Abraham coming at the start. He's the first religious father who comes into the drama from the soul world. But we know that before Abraham as well, there was devotion in the world because Abraham, of course, challenges the idol worshiping, doesn't he? Abraham was born in modern day Afghanistan, which was part of India at that time. And the way I look at Abraham is like, it seems like even that this syllable, Brahm, it's in Brahma, isn't it? Brahma. And in Abraham, like, there's a similarity. And Baba tells us in the morning that Baba is the father of three religions: the Brahmin, the deity of the Golden Age, and the warrior of the Silver Age. And Abraham is also the father of three religions: Jewish, Christianity, and Islam. They all, he's like the grandfather. He's like an Adam of the Western traditions. And you've got Brahma, who's like an Adam of the Eastern tradition. So I do think those two souls are significant within the drama, both for the religions in India and then also for the religions of the Middle East. But, I think what you're illustrating, sister, is the confusion I feel that's created if we get into this discussion of years. And just like you've attended the class, why I'm saying the things I'm saying is you can imagine how many classes I've attended. So I've heard this for years and so much speculation. And I suppose my loving advice to all of you brothers and sisters is I found the greatest benefit in not thinking about it. And I have total disinterest in the concept. And I've come to the conclusion that I don't know. Now, it's not breaking news, not a big conclusion, but I think there's a level of humility rather than continually speculating. I just try and keep myself inside of the parameters of the Murli. And what I know is that Baba tells us the Brahmins have to become palatable. Baba tells us everyone will receive the message through the Brahmin stage. So isn't that what I should be focusing upon? And I can't do anything for anyone else, but I can at least develop myself. As I develop myself, I automatically benefit everyone. So for me, it's about this day-to-day accumulation. I see the whole Brahmin family moving in the right direction. I think we're all moving together. And I'm confident we will all reach the destination together. But that's not a date. Like I've heard many times this conversation when Baba came in Magadha, and Devi Prakashmani would ask on behalf of everyone to Baba during the morning, Baba, when is the day? And I heard Baba ask back, you children give Baba the day. I've heard that many times. So I have come to the conclusion that it's not like a calendar date. It's the date of readiness. So that's the date. So if Baba's saying, when are you going to be ready? Because Baba says that if you ask Baba, Baba will say, do it today. And so Baba has to ask you, when are you ready to let go of mind, have constant yoga? That's the date. So that's the date of distraction. That's the date of the golden age. That's the date of going home. And so I don't view it as a calendar date.
I had one success yesterday, was it? I met, you go through life and you meet people. And I met this one. I had to go and get a battery for my watch. And they're Turkish people. So I could tell right away that their faith is in Jesus. But one question the wife asked me, she said, well, I told her, I study with the Brahma Kumaris. But she said, we are Christians and we follow Jesus. And then she asked me the question, who is God? And I said to her, God is a point of light. And Brother Shailen, she did not ask me another question.
This is it. You see, what's happened, sister, and Baba communicates this in the Murlis, is that actually the more devotion we did, our intellect got more and more disconnected from the Supreme Soul. So, like, people will remember Jesus, but Jesus told everyone to remember God. People will remember the Buddha, but the Buddha was guiding. So what happens over time, we put many people in between. And we lose that eternal original connection. So we never expected that Shiv Baba would come and actually teach us to leave religion. Now, we always assume that God would want us to have more religion, worship more, things like that. But he's not telling us this. He's saying, now let's stop worshiping. There won't be any worshiping in the golden age. That he wants us to just focus on being soul conscious and remembering Baba. I just feel the more I'm spending time with Shiv Baba, remembering him, experiencing him, listening to him in the Murli, he is eternal. He is stabilized in eternity. And I'm very cautious when someone who is, he sees the three aspects of time all in one go, right? He knows for him, the future is just the past repeating, right? So he is always viewing the whole. And he can see every soul's beginning, middle, and end of every moment, every birth. And when someone who's in that space of eternity begins talking about time, I really feel it's not the same as us. That our experience of time defines us every day. Like what time is it? No, when I must now go and like we are controlled by clocks. And you know how this all began? This is since the last 150 years. Of course, it was the British. It's always the British. And the British were building railways everywhere. And when you have railways, you have to have a clock to have a railway timetable. So this is how we became dominated by clock. And for example, one of the first stations that was built was in the city of Bristol. And Bristol was where they made the ships that went across to the Caribbean, America, West Africa, and so on. And when the railway came in, they wanted London to Bristol. But in the time, there's a 3-minute time difference between the clocks, the church clocks and the main bells. So the Big Ben in London will chime 3 minutes later than Bristol. Bristol is west. So they needed to have a clock that was the same time. They needed to align with the London time to make sure that the timetables of the train. So ever since then, like you said, you went to get a battery for your watch. Ever since then, we are controlled by it. So can you see even socially, we are shaped by clocks, calendar. Baba was talking today and yesterday about festivals, like religion has these constant festivals, our anniversaries, so even our age, even all of these things. So we are very much controlled by social calendars, by religious calendars, by clocks, and then we're listening to Shiv Baba, and we are so shaped by these things that have shaped us. So I just feel he is not shaped by any of this. He is in eternity. He sees time in a very different way. And he talks about time as being part of the creation. We often see time like a god because we leave our body, we take another body. So time is often connected with death. So you say, oh, his time was up. No. So it's connected with death a lot. Beginnings and ends. But in eternity, there's no beginning and end, right? So Baba always says time is your creation. You tell Baba when is the time, when is the day. So when I listen to Baba, I don't think he uses our calendar. I just have come to this conclusion that he's got his own perception of time. And I just don't get into offering interpretations of his.
Thank you so much.
And when it's like this 5,000-year cycle and things, I just take it as a point that he's trying to make is that in Hindu Bhakti, they might talk millions of years of a cycle, and that we go through 8.4 million species before we become a human being. And then in science as well, because that says the earth is eternal, so they're talking billions of years of a timeline. So I think I take it as a point, like I take the spirit of the point, which is that is saying it's not that long. So I'm happy to accept that as a point. But if you ask me year 1 to year 2,500 to year 5,000, I feel I'll get into a lot of trouble because when you study history and archaeology, you just get yourself into a lot of trouble, and I don't want to go there. But from a philosophical point of view, what is the point that is trying to make? Where ages spin round quicker than you. That's the point. Where quicker than you've been taught. Is challenging the human body of knowledge and saying that the cycle spins through. But I don't think he's using our calendar to the day and time. There's some Murlis, because Brahmins in the 1960s, they used to ask, when did Shubhada enter Brahmababa? Can you give a date and time? And for Sri Krishna, they offer a date and time. And some Brahmins, they're astrologers, so they wanted to make Shubhada's birth chart. So I don't know if Baba did know the date and time, or he just doesn't want to give a date and time. But generally, what we hear in the Murlis is that there's no date and time. Brahmababa didn't even know when Shubhada entered the increase. But I think also you ask Shubhada date and time as if he's using our calendar. Like Shubhada just tells us, when did you come into Brahmababa? I came at the end of the last of the births of Sri Krishna. That's the calendar he's using. He's using Brahmababa's births. So he's saying that this was his last birth. I came at the end. Because this was his end. This was his final birth. So I feel he uses the calendar of Brahma, the soul of Sri Krishna births. He doesn't use our calendar.
I believe you so much, Brother Sheila. And you know what? Baba says, look at what is happening in the world. Look at the experience and look at what is happening in the world. And that is telling us what is happening with time. It is read the Murlis and listen to me. He said, listen to me, don't pray to me, listen to me. And so his time is telling us to look at what is happening around you.
That's right.
Thank you.
I've had a couple of conversations in the last couple of months with people from Sikh backgrounds or Hindu backgrounds. One was my taxi driver when I was coming back from Sister Mohini Center to our hotel when we were in New York. And he was really into his Sikhism. I think he was recording podcasts, so he was a proper scholar type of Sikhism. And they also believe in these 4 ages of the cycle. But he was saying to me, oh, but it's just the start of the Iron Age. It's still millions of years there. But what you're saying is, what Baba says is, we look at climate change. See, at the time when Brahma Baba was saying these things, no one knew about climate change. But it was after Shiv Baba came that nuclear bombs were created. And now who knows what else is there. And then we all know it's absolutely undeniable what climate change is occurring. So all the signs are there at the end of the Iron Age. So I was just challenging him that saying that Mohini Devi was just telling me that it's the end of it. And so that's it. And then I went to speak at a program here in the town that I live in. And I was giving Sister Anjali in New York, she'd given me some of Baba's books to give as gifts. So I'd given a gift of The Journey of the Soul to someone. And it has some really good artwork. And one of the art pieces of artwork is the cycle. And so this sister said, oh, you're with the Brahma Kumaris, and she was challenging me because in Hinduism they show the demons and the golden age as well. That those demons and all the angels. So she was saying, oh, yeah, but there's always going to be demons. And what the point they were trying to make is we don't need to change our diet and lifestyle because even in the golden age, there are people living those lifestyles. And I just said to her, yeah, but Devi Janki said, if we remove all the demons now, then in the next golden age, there won't be any. So I just had to say it like that. And what you got is that Buddha says, these educations from human beings, they put everyone to sleep. So even when there's so much sorrow happening, people don't want to see the reality. And you get this with climate change. People just want to be in denial with these things. So what Buddha says to us is that the biggest indication it's the end of the Iron Age is that he's coming. If you get into all of the other debates, someone will always argue against it. But if you've got the faith that Shiva has come and he's teaching, he only comes at the end of the iron to create the good. So this is why that's our foundation. Getting into too much debates about years and things, I feel we're getting ourselves into unnecessary confusion. Okay. So we had a really in-depth chit chat about many things. Benjamin Ben is here. Let's listen to this Murli now, because it's Didi Manmohini's month. We're celebrating her anniversary on the 28th of July. So unbelievably, 40th anniversary. And what had happened was very sadly, so Didi was about 80 years old, I think 80 or 82. And very sadly, they found a small brain tumor within her. And the doctors had come to the conclusion that, so, Didi had collapsed. I think it had caused some sort of a mini stroke or something. So she had fallen down in her room. So the doctors had felt obviously these things, they're risky every way, aren't they? Especially as someone's age goes on. So multiple doctors have come to the same conclusion that it was worth operating. But very sadly, the operation didn't succeed. And then he was left in a coma. And then eventually, after a few weeks, it was the 28th of July, they switched off the machines. And then they had the funeral on the 30th of July. And then back there they came after the funeral to meet everyone as Lady Gozal was our friend board. So I'm going to hand over to Ranjan Ben now to read to you that was the wrong bit, I think. To read to you the Murli that Baba spoke in the evening of Didi Manmohini's funeral. Sorry, I'm going to have to read it a bit quicker.
Om Shanti. Hope everyone is well. This is the
Om Shanti.
Murli of 30th July, 30/07, 1983. And Baba says, where there is true love, there cannot be any waves of sorrow. Where there is true love, there cannot be any waves of sorrow. I think Baba is saying that because Baba knew that some were very surprised and they were blaming the gifts around him. And so, I think some distinctly message. So I'll tell you now, where there is true love, there cannot be any wave of sorrow. Bapdada's elevated version of DDT leaving the body. Today, Baba is seeing the children who have claimed their right to the unshakable kingdom, the victorious children who stay in an unshakable stage. On the basis of having the sanskars of being unshakable now, you have been unshakable every cycle in making the first effort of attaining the reward of the unshakable kingdom. If you watch every scene of drama while remaining stable at the confluence at the top point of the drama cycle, you automatically remain unshakable and immovable. So what Baba basically says, have this context, with Baba like Brahma Baba at the top, with Baba, the seed, and I am master seed, and just watch the drama unfolding, as a dictate of weather. Then you remain unshakable. So at the top, that's Baba. Then Baba that is the method showed us Baba to practice. So if you watch every scene of the drama whilst remaining stable at the confluence at the top point of the drama cycle, you automatically remain unshakable and immovable. It is only when you come down from the top point that there is upheaval. Where do all of you Brahmins, you elevated souls live? Where do you live? Baba has questioned, and then Baba is saying, in the cycle, the confluence age is the highest age. When Baba calls us, you are the watch, you are the clocks of the time. So that's why it's the top point. And like you see in the picture, it's almost here. The next midnight. Handle.
And the hands of the
Hands, and not handle, hands of the clock. So where do all the Brahmins, you elevated souls live? In the cycle, Baba says. The confluence age is the highest age. In terms of the picture, the confluence age is shown at the highest point. And in terms of the ages, the smallest age would be said to be a point. If you remain on that highest point, on the highest place, in an elevated state with this elevated knowledge, in remembrance of the highest and high Father. So the age is all small, but the point, so if you remain on that highest point, that is confluence age. Awareness, all the kind of confluence age. On the highest place, in an elevated stage, with this elevated knowledge, in remembrance of the highest and high Father, doing the highest and high service, and being an embodiment of remembrance, you will remain constantly powerful. So Baba gives the entire knowledge in this viewpoint. If you read the second practice, isn't it? Beginning and the end, essence. So Baba has given that in the entire Kalpa is in that.
That's right. It's a very different perspective of what time.
Yeah. So just Baba said, if you remember all this will become an embodiment of remembrance, the end chapter, Nasto Mahasmuti Labda means embodiment of remembrance and conqueror of attachment. So that is the last chapter, you have conquered, you have won. who are with Baba, you will remain constantly powerful. Where there is power, all waste is ended for all time. Every Brahmin is making effort to end waste. The account of waste and the karmic accounts of waste have ended, have they not? So today, Sakar Murli wrote something on this. There are quite a few points. So, or are there still some old accounts of waste? So Baba is asking, Baba asked both the questions, have the karmic accounts of waste have ended, has there no? Or are there still some old accounts of waste? When you look at Brahmin birth, you promised. What did we promise? The mind, the body, mind, and will all belong to you. Therefore, all waste thoughts ended because you gave your mind to the Almighty Father. So Baba said, you stay at the top and do service, means do the mansa seva, subtle service, to mind, and you're given to Baba, so there shouldn't be any wasteful or negative thoughts, because Baba's thoughts are always pure and benevolent. That's what Baba means. So therefore, all waste thoughts ended because you gave your mind to the Almighty Father. In the last 2 or 3 days, you haven't made your mind belong to yourself instead of making it belong to Baba, have you? So Baba is asking, because Baba observed that some children, because Didi left the body, was sad and had waste thoughts, and that's why Baba is asking. In the last 2 or 3 days, means from the 28th when they heard the news. So in the last 2 or 3 days, you haven't made your mind belong to yourself instead of making it belong to Baba. Have you? Means if you make your mind yourself, it's my mind, I can think whatever I like. So then there will be waste and negative and sad thoughts. That's what Baba means. The trustees, Baba reminded that we are trustees. The trustees have been given a direction to constantly have powerful thoughts in their mind. So he says that if you stay in a self-respect of a trustee, you will have regard for Baba and everything, Baba said, and you won't have this. The trustees have been given a direction to constantly have powerful thoughts in their mind. So is there a margin for anything wasteful? Did you have waste thoughts? You would say that you showed your love. All of you are tied in the thread of the family's love, and that is very good. If you shed pearls of love, those pearls became invaluable. But if you shed tears of wasteful thoughts of why and what, that is accumulated in the account of waste. So that's quite clear what Baba means. The pearls of love have become a sparkling garland around your loving Didi's neck. There are many such garlands of such true love around Didi's neck. However, if you had a stage of upheaval by even 1% and shed tears, they didn't reach Didi. And then Baba is asking, why didn't they reach Didi? She was constantly a victorious, unshakable, immovable soul, and is that even now. And so the remembrance of those who have upheaval cannot reach those who are unshakable. So did you underline? Did you? It's beautifulness. It teaches us that no matter our closest relative, whatever leaves the body, Baba understands, we feel it, but Baba is teaching us, that don't have this negativity will reach them, because they don't, if they don't even know, like they won't be, So instead of giving them courage, power, everything, and helping them, they're not helping, because they are giving them more sorrow, more fear, whatever. Because they don't have that capacity like Didi has. So this is why we see it didn't reach Didi, otherwise it garlanded Didi. She had true love. Why? She was constantly a victorious soul, unshakable. These are all our titles for, the day in your self-respect and give it further. So good practice, Baba is reminding us our titles, trustee, now constantly a victorious, unshakable, immovable soul. And is that even now? And so the remembrance of those who have upheaval cannot reach those who are unshakable. That just remains here. They don't become pearls or sparkle in the garland. Whatever the stage and position of a soul, the remembrance of other souls in the same stage and position, which is that soul. So this is also beautiful to keep all the time. Why I need to stay in my stage. Baba said, whatever the stage and position of a soul, the remembrance of other souls in the same stage and position, which is that soul. You have love, and this is a very good sign. If you love her, then surrender your love. Where there is true elevated love, there cannot be any waves of sorrow, because you have gone beyond the land of sorrow. All the sweet complaints also reached here. Now, Bap Dada says, all the sweet complaints also reached here, the Paramdam, the subtle region and Paramdam. Everyone's complaint was, why was our sweet and lovely Didi cold? Bap Dada said, the one whom everyone finds to be so sweet, the father would also find her to be sweet. So, in Lokic world also we say God needed her for them for some good reason, for some good service. So Baba is also saying that Baba also needed her because she's so sweet. The one whom everyone finds to be so sweet, the father would also find her to be sweet. If there is a need for sweetness, who would be called? Those who are the sweetest of all. So all of you think and also repeatedly question why the special souls of the advanced party are still incognito. You want them to be revealed, do you not? According to time, some of the souls of the advanced party are invoking the elevated souls. So according to time, some of the souls of the advanced party are invoking the elevated souls. For the special task of the original transformation, souls who are the original jewels are required. Special yogi souls who are able to experiment with the power of yoga are required. Souls who are partners with the bestower of fortune are required. Even Brahma is called the bestower of fortune, Bhagya Vidhata. Brahma Baba is in Hinduism, he is always Bhagya Vidhata, bestower of fortune. So Baba says, even Brahma is called the bestower of fortune. Do you understand why she has been called? Do you think about what will happen here and how it will happen? When Father Brahma became aware, you saw what happened and how it happened. Do you think that Dadi is alone now? Dadi Prakashmani, because Dadi and Didi, they both were running the administration and everything. That's why. So Daddy is alone. Do you think? Baba is asking. She doesn't think that. Daddy Prakashmani doesn't think it, but some had this thought. All of you think that. It is like this, is it not? Baba is saying, asking, and then Baba signaling towards Dadiji. So Baba asked Dadiji signal. You have your divine unity, because even in the beginning there are different types of groups, like it was divine unity and some others. I don't remember that.
That's right. They, in order to split the different duties in the yajna in Karachi, Mama had formed the daddies and dadas into different groups so that they could focus on things. And the seniors group, they all lived together. So Mama, Didi Manmohini, Didi Prakashmani, Didi Shantamani, Didi Chundramani, Didi Nirmal, later on Didi Nirmal Shanta and Didi Janki, they were also added to this group. And the name of that group of seniors was the Divine Unity Group. And that's what Baba's referring.
Yeah. So do you have your divine unity, one of the groups of the Sakar days? Do you know? So do you not have the arms of those who belong to the divine unity? There is a divine unity, is there not? Why was this group formed? In order to cooperate with one another. So that's why Baba talks about keeping a good company, because then they are like your arms when you need them. And so Baba says to cooperate with one. In order to cooperate with one another, Baba says that's why the group was formed. Whenever you want and whomsoever you call, everyone is ready to serve. The daddies have a lot of inner love for one another. None of you know about it. And so you ask, what will happen now? Didi alone proved that all of you original jewels are one. She showed this. Did she know? After Father Brahma, in the corporeal form, the 9 jewels who are worthy to be worshipped revealed themselves on the field of service. So the 9 jewels or the rosary of 8 are constantly cooperating with one another. Who are part of the rosary of 8? Baba is asking. Who are the part of the rosary of 8? Those who take responsibility in service are Arjun. That is part of the rosary of 8. So Baba gives this title to all of us. Arjun means the one who does it, and become.
Today, I'm Miss Murli. Baba appoints Dadi Chandramani and Dadi Janki as the deputies. So he does this directly at that time. When Brahma Baba had left, the first thing that Dadi Prakashmani had done with Didi Manmohini was they had called a meeting of all the daddies then in 1969. And Dadi Prakashmani said, I'm going to need all of you now. So at that time, there might have been something like 100 daddies, maybe in 69, 150 maybe. And then by the time babies left, there was something like 70 daddies and dadas left, 70 to 80. So again, they bring them all together and they say, I need you all. So this is what Baba is referring to, that from the beginning, these daddies and dadas, they've always been very collectively minded. They've not been individualistic. So they have never had their own personal ego. But it's because of their love and appreciation for Baba and each other that actually they've always, otherwise Dadi Prakashmani could have said, well, I'm the boss now, you all listen to me. But Her approach was always that I'm going to need everyone. We all need to work together.
So those 8 special jewels or the 9 jewels are playing their part on the stage of service, and to play your part is to reveal your part and your number. So Baba mentioned number, and it's us, up to us how much effort Baba is saying, how you play your part and how much effort you make. And you are choosing there, to be number 1 or number 2 or 3. Bap Dada will not give a number like that, but it is your part that reveals your number. So the 8 jewels are constantly loving and cooperating with one another. This is why the souls who have been cooperating in service from the beginning will always continue to play their part of cooperating. Do you understand? What other questions do you have? Do you question why you were not told before? If Baba had told you this, you would have become Didi's yogis. So the mind and intellect would be drawn towards Didi, and so you'll have yoga with Didi rather than with remembering Baba. The part of the drama is unique. And here in bracket, unique is Vichitra, Vichitra, means unique, without, and then another Vichitra, bodiless, like without an image, means the soul only, no body, without body. And the picture cannot be taken of something that is without an image. A fresh paper of upheaval comes suddenly. Means Baba says, Baba also doesn't preparing that any sin will come suddenly. Nobody knows. A test paper of upheaval comes suddenly. And even now, this special soul has a part. Her part is lovely and unique, Vichitra Baba. Here it applies Vichitra, unique. Because it has 2 meanings, bodiless, without image, and Vichitra means unique. To the souls who have already gone, you will continue to experience the company and cooperation of this elevated soul in every field. Father Brahma has his own part, and her part cannot be like his. However, the speciality of this soul has always been to give zeal and enthusiasm in service, and to make others yogi and cooperative, and for them to experiment. So her speciality, to make others yogi and cooperative, and for them to experiment. This is why this special sanskar will from time to time give you all the experience of remaining cooperative. Each soul has their own unique part. Acha? Yeah, because then Baba goes on saying,
We'll carry
you
on.
came to Vatican, we might,
Yeah,
read it some other time.
That's it. We'll carry on another time.
Yeah. So, and then we all have experience, everybody, the experience with whenever they go to the tower of Dadi Jansi and all those Shakti towers of all the Dadis, Ishu Dadi, they all, some of you know when you went to Madhuban, you experienced that. And so Didi is reading those experiences also about ancient.
Does anyone have any quick reflections before we start for today?
What struck me is when Baba said, because of the level of the soul and the accumulation that was there, that even the sorrow from the children or the upheaval didn't reach her. She was still protected from that. So my thinking was that while we are here, even Baba is saying in her case, But for us as well, if our level of accumulation and our power is so much that we have accumulated, the sorrow of the world will not touch us.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think that was the deepest point of what we heard so far. But I think the way you explained it is useful and right. I interpreted it slightly differently. My interpretation was that Baba was saying that when you are in that high level, that paramount state, like you say, no mixture from this world can reach you, but also you can absorb a higher level of appointment. So where there were Brahmins who didn't have a mixture, but they just have that pure vibration, that did reach. And as I was hearing that point, I was thinking, I was looking at Baba, and I was understanding that what Baba's trying to say to me is the more pure I make my state, the more I will be able to catch what Baba wants to give me. So Baba's saying that as long as we're in a lower state, we can't get those higher level vibration. As we get into a higher stage, we can absorb those higher vibrations, and then we won't necessarily be affected by the lower vibration.
Yeah, and also you see, we are seeing how everything is going. Rather than waiting for restriction or asking about it, Baba has said everything is going to go into the extremes. And we are seeing that no matter how much they all are trying, everything is going in extreme. We all can see it. And our relatives, our looking this also important because there will be lots of untimely deaths, sickness, and so Baba, Didi is teaching, Baba is teaching us how our state should be. I think so. Yeah.
And also your point earlier about how do we reach others? So as long as we've got a mixture in our feelings, then actually our yoga is not reaching adversaries. I think that's also the point. That if we really want to serve our mom, Baba's narrative was that you should constantly have powerful thoughts in our mind. So it's that accumulation of that stage of pure and powerful thinking, which then enables our good wishes to be amplified, to reach many others. And he's saying that even if Didi's left her body, her good wishes continue to help. Now, because once you're in that higher stage, you're amplifying vibrations on another level and can reach other soul. Thank you. I think that's a good way to start. So very rich discussion today. I really appreciate those of you that have been able to be here live and stimulate the discussion and listeners there. And also warm greetings to all of you who tune in. I do get your messages as well. I know that many of you like to tune in later on, even if you can't join us live. So we also send out to you. And see you all soon, I'm sure.
Thank you so much, brother and sister. Have a beautiful rest of the week.
Have a good week, everyone. I'm sure.